All right, so in this video, we're going to be covering the overall layout and design of Substance Stager. So when you first open Stager, you're going to see a welcome window like this. This is going to highlight some of the tools and capabilities of the software, probably the latest and greatest from the different releases, all that good stuff. You can close this out here, and then you'll have an interactive page where once you kind of get working in the software a lot, you'll have the ability to access files that you've recently worked on, in addition to creating a new file, or any of these options down here. Tutorials, there's documentation, and the features request. So if you have an idea for the Stager team on how to improve the product, they are more than welcome and open to those ideas. For this, we're just gonna create a new file, and that will allow us to jump into our basic Stager interface. For that, there are three main areas that you generally work with. Over here on the left-hand side, this is our asset panel. So this is where we're going to have all of our models. If you go up into these buttons here, these will filter by different types of assets. So again, models, I click here, materials. So all of these are all the material properties that are pre-built into Stager. We also have light rigs. We'll talk about that more later. And then some just basic images. But the idea being that all of these are assets that can be utilized in our scene that are pre-built into Stager. Additionally, we have our libraries here. Libraries, or the CC libraries, or the Adobe Creative Cloud libraries, is Adobe's cloud-based storage system. So you can have things in Photoshop and Illustrator, and they'll appear here in Stager. It's a really nice way to work as a team. You can have a designer designing a logo in Illustrator, and that'll pop up right here in Stager for your 3D artists. So that's something very cool there. So in order to get these into our workspace, which is this main area here in the middle, you can do a couple different things. You can either drag and drop them into the space, or you can simply click on the asset and that will put it into the middle at the origin of the scene. Additionally, if I wanted to add materials to this, it's just as easy as going in here. You can scroll through this list and find the material that you want. Or you can utilize this search bar at the top. And I know that there's this jersey fabric that I like, so I can just either click it because I have this couch selected, or drag and drop it onto the space there. So now we have this main workspace here in the middle. In this section, we can select different objects, we can move them around, we can scale them up and back, things like that. Just basic interaction. This is where you're going to be laying out your scene, controlling everything, just having basic UI interface issues with the objects themselves. On the right hand side, we have our properties manager. So that's down here in the lower right. So this is where we can interact again with the material. So if I want to change the color of this, I certainly can do that. If I want to go in here and change the objects, I can do that as well. So this particular model is a parametric model, which means that we can use these sliders to make different styles of couches. I can control the width of the couch, and it'll adjust the seating and the number of cushions. We'll talk about that more in a future video. But basically just know that this is your main interaction point with the slider controls that will allow you to interact with the object. So the main properties are down here. In the upper right hand side, we've got our scene defining area. So again, there's just a sofa in here, but if I added more assets to it, like a cube and a sphere, and I put those in the scene, I can access those here and select them here as well as in the interface. So again, like that cube is inside the couch here, but I can't really select it. I can select it up here and then move it out from there. Additionally, we have some other kind of smaller areas that you're going to want to work with. To start, we have this area way over here to the left-hand side. This is kind of like our quick hitter tools and such. So here we can, use this plus button to bring in new objects. We've got this button here that allows us to control how we interact with the scene a little bit more. Choices, we'll get into this a little bit more, but the idea of like how you select things, whether you're grabbing just an individual asset or the entire group. We've got our magic wand, our eyedropper. Again, you're gonna see me using these throughout this course, but just understand that these are just some quick access to some common tools. We also have this area up at the top. These are more workflow options that will allow you to more quickly interact with things. Again, I'll dive into these a little bit more as well. And also up here, you have things like where you can add a camera and also activate our ray tracer. Again, we'll talk about that more in a future video. But just so you know, like these are the main layout areas. So left-hand side here, this is where your assets are. Central area, this is where you're going to be interacting. Right-hand area, this is where you're going to be mostly dealing with your properties and also your scene graph as well. One other final area that I want to draw attention to with this video is these three buttons up here at the top. So right now we're in design mode. You're going to spend most of your time in design mode. But if you want to skip back to that welcome menu, you can just hit the home button. You can also go back into design mode. And then when it's time to render out the scene, you'll just click this render button and it'll bring up your render dialog box. So just be aware of that up there. We can, again, go into them in more detail later, but just a rough overview. And then, of course, up here at the top, we've got all of our, we can go to our files where you can save, export, import, open files, edit. You can edit preferences, copy, cut, paste, object if there's certain object controls. You can adjust the cameras in here and different viewpoints and different windows as well. Overall, that's a very rough idea. I just want to give you a lay of the land a little bit before we start diving in a little bit deeper.